I am going to introduce Ann Rana, who is just the best. Ann, are you the executive director of CTCL, the Colleges That Change Lives? And we are so delighted to have you presenting today and sharing information about this amazing organization and this amazing collection of schools with us. And so please take it away. I'm gonna, if people have questions, you can put them into the chat. I will monitor the chat and we'll have question and answer. What we'd love to do is have all the schools present first, and then we'll go through and kind of have questions and answers at the end so that we don't want to just, sort of take somebody off the rails in terms of what they want to make sure we hear before we start answering questions. So thank you so much.
Perfect. Thanks, Deb. Hi, everybody. We're so happy to be here to spend some time with you in conversation about one of my favorite things, our organization, and 4 distinctly different schools this morning. So we're going to pretend like I've done this before. Okay. So good morning. I'm Ann Rano, Executive Director of the Colleges That Change Lives organization. Before that, I was a school-based college-bound advisor at the Irma Lerma Rangel Young Women's Leadership School in Dallas, Texas. And before that, spent 20 plus years in college admissions counseling in various capacities. And full disclosure, I am a huge super fan of the Colleges That Change Lives and have been since I started my career in higher ed. And I even looked at the University of Puget Sound before it was named a CTCL when I was conducting my college search. Alas, I did not end up at a CTCL college, but I did have a very similar liberal arts experience. So that's my connection. Today, I just want to give you a brief overview of CTCL, the organization, how it came to be, a little bit about our history. Then it's my distinct professional and personal privilege to introduce you to 4 of our member colleges. So you will hear from Knox College, Kalamazoo College, Wabash College, and Ohio Wesleyan University. And I want to thank my colleagues for being here with us today. And then we'll spend just a couple of minutes talking about how we can work together. Because you are our ambassadors out in the field. So here's just a little background on CTCL, what we like to say by the numbers. This collection of schools was first uplifted and amplified by Lauren Pope, who for many years had been an education writer in the higher ed space and also an independent educational consultant. And he'd been asked by families and colleagues over the years to put together a list to make recommendations of schools that folks may not be as familiar with, but that really were doing amazing things with and for undergraduates. And in his own studies, Lauren also wanted to give some of these schools the spotlight because he had felt for a long time his philosophy was all about fit and match before that was trending. He was way ahead of the curve, but also his philosophy had to do with directing students to schools that were doing amazing things with and for them that you might not necessarily know about. And yet when those students were graduating and were launching into professional school and the workforce into their careers, their success was rivaling the success of the 12 schools that everybody talks about. And I call them the 12 sweatshirt schools. Lauren also wanted to push back against the narrative that said there were only a certain number of schools in this country that you could go to and hope to have any kind of life afterwards. And to kind of bring more joy into the process and remind everybody, students, counselors, families, that students were at the center of it all, that it really was about the student. And so that book was published in 1996. I'm so excited that 2023 will be the 25th anniversary of the schools traveling together. That first merry band of schools got together in 1998 and took it on the road to promote the liberal arts themselves and a student-centered college search. And now we are proudly 44 institutions spread out across 25 states with an average enrollment of just under 2,000. I'm really proud of the diversity of our group of schools. Like, I want to say that there is something for everyone. You can find a CTCL school that makes sense for you as an individual, for your students. But the things we share in common, we hold very dear. And that includes that we are all liberal arts colleges. The liberal arts are at the core of what we believe in terms of developing a whole person who is skilled across a variety of subject areas and can communicate well, can write well, can problem solve, think critically, work great in groups, define their own leadership, continue to develop that, seek challenges, and give back to the world. That sounds like a really big menu, but it happens. And you'll hear that from my colleagues in just a few minutes. We're also schools who believe in hands-on learning, experiential learning. So taking the theoretical and injecting it into the practical to take a look at how we can make a difference in the world. These are places where faculty are committed to undergraduates and to teaching. That is their primary focus. And they very often pull those students into research and into their own work and elevate those students. These are residential communities. We believe that living in community makes a difference in terms of getting to know folks, especially navigating relationships with folks whose origin stories and backgrounds are different than yours. And again, in another way that we are hashtag trending before it was cool and trendy, these are schools that have been committed to holistic admission review for a very, very long time. So looking at that whole student in the admissions process is something that we value and we've been practicing for a while. Every once in a while, I like to steal something from Lauren Pope. And this is one of those things to kind of ground you. And I know some of you may already be very familiar with CTCL schools, but it's nice to refresh our working knowledge of the schools and the organization. But anyway, this is something that I think grounds me in who we are as a group of schools, a collection of schools, and as an organization. And that our schools share two essential elements: a familial sense of communal enterprise that gets students heavily involved in cooperative rather than competitive learning, and a faculty of scholars devoted to helping young people develop their powers, mentors who often become their valued friends. So that just gives you a sense of, again, the things that we value and what we hold dear and what your students and families can find on these 44 campuses. These are the 44 current colleges that change lives. They are located across, like I said, 25 different states. Some are smaller, some are a little bit larger. We have one Division I school in our midst. There are not a handful, there are a couple of single gender schools. Agnes Scott College is a college primarily for women, and Wabash College, who you'll hear from today, is a college primarily for men. There are some schools that have religious affiliations, and that is at the core of who they are. That includes Hope College and Wheaton College, and Hillsdale College also identifies as a faith-based institution. There are public institutions, and so those are asterisk on that list. The New College of Florida and the Evergreen State College are both public schools. There are schools that use the great books, including St. John's College with 2 campuses in Maryland and New Mexico. And then Cornell College, the original Cornell College, thank you, in Iowa, which is a 1 course at a time college. So there's a lot of variety. There are schools where you can self-design a major. And again, that was something that grew organically out of the college before it was hashtag trending. I just want to make sure we get a lot of credit for this stuff. We've always been on the cutting edge. Anyway, there's something for everybody. Some in urban centers, some more suburban, some located closer to nature, a little something for everybody. And there are 44. The original book had 40 schools in it. And folks often ask me, well, how did it get to be 44? There have been 4 editions of the book, and along the way, and it was a publishing decision by the publisher to keep that number at 40. Some schools were dropped from the list, although they've never been dropped from the organization, and then may have been added later in a later edition of the book. So in the 4th edition of the book, which was published in 2012, 4 new schools were added. The organization invited them to join. The organization had reached out to any of the schools that had been named at any time in the book's publication history. So that's how we got to 44 schools. That's where we're at right now. So in our current day, this is what our organization focuses on. We bring the message around the liberal arts, and particularly this distinctly different group of schools, to counselors and families and students across the United States by hosting a number of information sessions and college fairs. And we're gearing up to start our spring tour next month. In mid-March, we'll start. We try to promote a message about the student-centered college search to remind everybody that it really is the student that is driving this and what they value and the kind of experience that they're looking for. and to inject some reality into the conversation around rankings, to remind folks what actually goes into those rankings, to take a critical look at the values that are upheld by those very public rankings and obsession with those rankings, and see if they mirror the values that that student is looking for. And if they do, great. And if they don't, awesome, because we've got a great group of schools for them to consider. And then putting forth a message about the importance of high impact experiences, right? So on our campus, students have access to study abroad and research and collaborating with peers and colleagues, getting involved in research and positions of leadership across campus, really dynamic opportunities to get involved, to put their own skill set to use, to develop and discover, quite honestly, some of those skill sets they might not have known they had. Wow, that conjugation was way off, but I think you know what I mean. An opportunity to be mentored and to be mentors. These are things that, again, our schools have been doing organically and that are accessible to every student on campus, not just to a select group that is pre-qualified, if you will, based on maybe their high school achievements, right? So our 44 schools believe in making those high impact experiences, and you'll hear about some of them in a minute from our 4 schools that are here today, but making those experiences available to every student who enrolls, every undergraduate. And again, with a focus on undergraduate, that is a priority experience. And so that's what we hope to communicate through our variety of activities. And one of my favorite things is reminding students that they are in power. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Andrew Grayson from Kalamazoo College to share about the K.
Oh, there we go. Okay, I had myself muted there for a moment. Hello, everyone. It's very nice to see all your smiling faces here today. I will note, I just looked through the slides and some of them are formatted a little bit strange, but I think that we'll still get through this okay together. And I think it's slide number 8 is the first one for me. There we go. Okay, cool. So really briefly, I'm going to tell you a little bit about sort of who we are, where we are, some kind of fast facts about the college, because like Anne said, a lot of what we're going to say about our schools is actually quite similar. So I'm going to try to focus on some of the things that might stand out as being a little bit different, certainly from your standard liberal arts experience, and potentially some of the things that we have in common with our CTCL brethren. Go to the next slide, thank you. So first of all, where are we? See, I knew that this one was going to be formatted funny. So we're in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I bring a map with me everywhere. We're right about here. It's about 2.5 hours from Chicago, 2 hours from Detroit. There is a regional airport about 15 minutes from campus. We're well connected with the Amtrak station, as well as about a mile away, and 3 different trains come through the area. So important to know that it's an accessible place for your students to get to, and also to travel from. And then also the city of Kalamazoo. I think that for a lot of folks who've not spent time in Michigan or in the Midwest might picture cornfields and cows. So Kalamazoo is actually a city. So there's a little bit more than 250,000 people in our metropolitan area, and about 30,000 of those are college students. We'll talk a little bit more about our student population, but we have Western Michigan University. They have their medical school and law school, as well as our fairly robust regional community college here in town. So that means that our students get to participate in a larger university town experience. And I'll talk in a minute about some of the ways that we really take advantage of that. But certainly that is a little different from the circumstances that a lot of small liberal arts schools are going to find themselves in. Next one, thank you. So here's a little view of our town and our school. So that bell tower in the middle, that is the chapel in the middle of our campus. We actually were religiously affiliated until about 70 years ago. We no longer hold a religious affiliation, but the middle of campus has a beautiful chapel in it. The buildings around that, you can see some more brick buildings. That's our campus. In the distance off to the right-hand side of the screen, you see a collection of buildings. That is downtown Kalamazoo. So it's about a 15-minute walk. And it shows you a little bit of kind of how integrated we are with our surroundings. Plus, it's just a pretty picture that I wanted to show off. So a little bit about us more specifically. We have roughly 1,400 students, all undergraduate. Our campus is set up more like a neighborhood, I would say, than a standard big sprawling campus. We're in a historic district in the city of Kalamazoo. Our college actually makes up one of the historic districts. Our average class size is about somewhere between 15 and 20 students. 16, I think, is the technical average, but our largest class right now is about 40 students and our smallest is 4. So certainly students are going to have a fairly intimate experience with their classmates. Also, all of our classes are taught by professors. We don't have graduate students on our campus, so they're going to have a lot of direct contact one-on-one with their teachers. Now, where do our students come from? They really do come from all over the world. We experienced a downshift in international students, certainly during the pandemic, but we're seeing that numbers start to recover. We were about 10 to 12%. We're closer to about 5% international students right now. But we do see very strong enrollment from across the country. Our largest out-of-state population is actually Texas. So for those of you in Texas, congratulations. And also we're very excited to see that number continue to grow. And then California and the Pacific Northwest are our second and third larger groups. Illinois obviously is up there along with some other Midwestern states, but we really do see students from all over the place. We also have made some really intentional investments in diversification of the campus, both in certainly recruiting multicultural students and first-generation students as noted here, but also in ongoing efforts in access and inclusion on campus, and a very robust anti-racism program here. Faculty, about 98%, 98% of our faculty have a PhD or terminal degree in their field, and the student-faculty ratio currently is at 11:1. And as far as our outcomes, we're very proud, top 2% in the US of colleges and universities who produce PhD candidates. And about 98% of our students secured a first destination within the first 6 months in this last graduating class. And we've seen that number stay pretty consistent over time. Another little view of campus. We can move on to the next slide. That picture turned out to be a little bit wobbly. Go ahead and click through. I think that the other text on the screen is. Yes. Okay. So the K plan is probably the most distinctive part of the Kalamazoo College experience. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this. Basically, there are 4 parts. We have a rigorous and flexible liberal arts curriculum, basically an open curriculum. Students build and create their own curriculum with the help of an advisor during their 4 years. The only requirements are they have to major in something. And because of how flexible the curriculum is, our average student has 2 majors and a minor, or some combination like that, maybe a concentration, maybe just a pile of courses, but they have lots of space to play. They are also required to take foreign language if they don't already have foreign language skills. And they are required to do a senior project, which we'll talk about because it's also part of the K plan. Next item on the list. So obviously, it's important for us that students come and they do well in their classes and they get good grades. It's equally important that students come here and we're able to provide a lot of opportunities for hands-on learning and skill building. So our goal is that every student leaves with a robust transcript and a robust resume. Most of our students will engage in professional development and hands-on learning through our Center for Career and Professional Development while they're with us. Also study abroad and study away. So prior to the pandemic, about 80% of our students participated in study abroad, most going for 6 to 7 months during their junior year. Silver lining the pandemic is that it required us to become a little more flexible. So we do offer some more programming now. And the goal isn't necessarily that every student goes, but that every student can go if they choose to. And we're well on our way to that goal, which is exciting. And finally, next click there. Fantastic. So every senior, as I mentioned, completes a senior integrated project. Basically, they pick a subject that they're really passionate about. They dig deep and they do either research or an internship, or maybe it's something super creative. But whatever it is, it's going to be a robust, fully formed sort of mini thesis that each student's going to create. And that's the K plan. So when they're finished, they'll have a transcript that shows they've learned some stuff in the classroom, a resume that shows they've learned some stuff and gained some skills outside of the classroom, potentially studying either outside the United States or somewhere else within the United States, gaining some additional skills and experience there. And then a shiny, polished piece of work to showcase what they're capable of in the form of that senior integrated project. And final slide. So I'm going to drop in the chat here a link. We have counselors in all of the states that you all represent, and they would love to get in touch with you. We do occasionally have visit opportunities here on our campus, and certainly we spend time out in your regions, and so we'd love to connect with you. If you'd fill out that link, that'd be great. And if you have additional questions, I'll drop my contact information in as well. Thanks.
Thanks, Andrew. And I'm super, super excited that I get to visit Kalamazoo and Andrew and his team next month. Yippee. Great. Take it away, Tyler Wade from Wabash.
Hey, everybody. My name is Tyler Wade. I have way too many titles, but I'm a director of pre-college programs and associate director of regional admissions at Wabash. I actually live down in Dallas, Texas, and recruit students from Texas to go to school in Indiana on top of my other duties. It seems like some folks may be having Wi-Fi issues. I think I am too here in Dallas, so we'll just try and muddle through as we can. But anyway, yeah, I'm from Wabash College. So Wabash is a small private liberal arts college located in a town called Crawfordsville, Indiana. Crawfordsville has about 15,000 people that live in the town. We are located about 45 minutes outside of Indianapolis, just about 3 hours south of Chicago. It's good for Andrew to remind folks that, and I always do this too, Indianapolis is the 15th largest city in the country. People do actually live in the Midwest. It's not just cornfields and cows, right? But people do live here. Ann mentioned Wabash is an all-male college. We will talk a little bit more about that, but just some quick facts to know about us. So 900 students are on our campus, so it's a very small school. Average class size is 11. Like the other colleges on the school, we are a very rigorous liberal arts education. We offer over 40 different majors and minors on our campus. We are members of NCAA Division III and compete in the North Coast Athletic Conference. So those are sort of the basics about us. I know, and we'll go to the next slide if that's okay. So we do talk about rankings. And it looks like the formatting didn't like us on this either. But and rankings, I know folks feel really strongly about them in general, but we feel really excited about some of the rankings that speak to the experience at Wabash, particularly ones that come from Princeton Review, which are often the student perspective, right? So Wabash ranks as number 2 for having the best alumni network of any school in the country. The number 1 school in that metric is Notre Dame. So a really strong alumni network. We rank number 3 for having the best internship opportunities. And so those things obviously go into making students successful after college, right? But then also, I think good rankings speak to what the classroom experience is like at Wabash, particularly with regard to our teaching. So we rank 5th for having high marks with the professors, 6th for them being most accessible, and 9th for having the best classroom experience. Clearly, folks feel very strongly about the quality of classroom education that they get at Wabash. We also rank number 1 in the country for having lots of race and class interaction. I always think that's a weird heading from Princeton Review, but basically what that means is that at Wabash, we have students from all different walks of life, different racial and ethnic groups, socioeconomic statuses, folks that are from the Midwest, but then also folks from other parts of the country and the world as well. We currently have 32 different states and 17 different countries represented on our campus. Texas is the largest population of students outside of Indiana as well. So really vibrant and robust sort of student community. But I think the thing that overrides a lot of that. And the thing that we feel makes it really strong at Wabash is that, we are a community where there is a huge diversity of those experiences at Wabash, and are just super excited about being there in community with one another. To go on to the next slide. This slide talks a little bit of about outcomes. I like to key in on a couple of these in particular. So, with 98% of our students have a first destination secured within 6 months of graduation. So very similar to Kalamazoo. So students, this goes, I think, very against the notion that the liberal arts is sort of a pathway to nowhere, right? You probably can't go a week without picking up a Wall Street Journal and reading about how, in their minds, that liberal arts is dying and that people have to study these super specific degree plans to be able to get a job. And that's just simply not. The survey after survey after survey show that the skills that employers want in folks, the number one most important skill is problem solving. And I think the liberal arts is the best at developing really strong problem solving skills, because by having you take classes in different subject areas, right, it's giving you different lenses through which to approach that problem solving. And those strong problem solving skills are the skill set that employers say is the most important in folks. So folks are graduating, they're getting a job after college, they're not going back and living at home on the couch. I can't say in people's basements, because in Texas we don't have basements, but they're not living on mom and dad's couch. We also have a 94% medical school acceptance rate, which is a tremendously high number, obviously, right? A 96% law school acceptance rate, and 1 in 10 of our graduates is a business executive of some kind for the company that they work for. So really strong sort of graduate and professional school placements. Also very strong median early career and mid-career salaries as reported by PayScale. So if my frame of reference is almost always Texas, but if Wabash were located in Texas, we would rank second behind Rice University for those early career and mid-career salaries. So, Wabash graduates out earn folks from UT Austin and A&M, right? And lots of other places here in Texas. And that's evidenced by this next slide, which shows you examples of some of the places where our students have done internship opportunities, have gotten full-time employment offers with graduate programs that they are enrolled in, or different fellowships that they are pursuing. Obviously, there are lots of recognizable brands there. So really strong career outcomes, really strong classroom experiences. But obviously, the thing that makes Wabash different than almost every school in the country is the fact that we're an all-male college. And so I always like to talk about that on our next slide. Particularly because when I show this in classrooms, I'll tell students to look at the bottom left and see that there are girls in the picture, right? And sort of use it as a means of talking about why Wabash is an all-male college, right? And so, I think, sort of the funny thing about this one is that I think it's unfortunate that that's how people often define Wabash, is by being an all-male college, because I think we're a great college, period, right? It happens to just be an all-male college. And if you were to go and talk to our students, I don't think that any of them would tell you that they came to Wabash because it was an all-male college. They came there because it's a great school, right? But I think that the all-male education does offer some opportunities. Goes without saying, but a lot of times students seem shocked when they come to campus and actually see women working around, right? It's not a monastery. It's not a military school. There's not a gate with a formal check-in, check-out process, right? So it's an all-male student body. So the benefits that come with that often, right? I think one, single-sex institutions, oftentimes you will talk about, students being able to focus on their education. Sometimes our students will say they enjoy the all-male college aspect because they don't like being distracted. I don't always like to think of it as being a distraction, but I do think that in sort of single-sex settings, young men in particular are more often to sort of express what it is they think about things, may take more risk when it comes to talking about things in the classroom, and can feel a lot more free to sort of be open and true to who it is that they are, right? I think it's also good for guys to see in those environments that there are lots of different ways to be a guy, right? We like to talk a lot about being an and college, not an or college. And so If you are really into theater, but also like playing football, you can be involved in football and theater at Wabash, and that's something cool, right? It's also good for guys to see, well, gosh, they may think that they're the only young man who enjoys knitting, right? But they get into an all-male environment and find out that there are probably other people that like knitting just as much as they do, and they can even go and start a knitting club on campus, right? And I think those things are all positive. But the biggest strength, I think, that comes from the all-male education for us is, I think that our young men develop a lot more emotional intelligence than I think is common among college-age men, because they sort of have to perform for each other those emotional support kind of roles that unfortunately in society we often do leave to women, right? So if your buddy's going through a tough breakup, family members dealing with a medical diagnosis, you're struggling with your mental health, our guys have to be there for each other through that process, right? And in doing so, they're going to develop really strong empathy, sympathy, nurturing type skills, and those things are going to make them better husbands, better fathers, better male coworkers, better friends, right? Better sons. And that's the thing that I think we are probably the most proud of, right? Now, I say all of those things, especially when I talk to high school classrooms and they go, well, that sounds great, but like, how would I ever meet a girl if I go to an all-male college, right? And as I mentioned, we are pretty centrally located within Indiana. So we are 30 minutes south of Purdue University, 30 minutes north of DePaul, another smaller arts college, just about an hour away from Indianapolis and all the schools that are there, and about an hour in Indiana University. And so meeting people is of the opposite sex and important students. There are plenty of opportunities to do that. Through the week, our students do take their studies pretty seriously. And so, you won't see a lot of social events happening on Tuesday night, right? But on the weekends, we probably don't look different than any other college in the country. The other thing that I always like to kind of get a dig in at students these days is, one, I think a lot of courtship happens through social media apps and less in person, right? And so, they already go to schools. Most of them go to schools that are in co-ed environments, and they already aren't talking to girls that are there in person anyway, right? They're talking to them through social media apps. And if that's the case, right, well, you can talk to people from anywhere in the country, right? So the idea that you have to be in the same geographic location to date somebody, I think is kind of an old-fashioned notion, right? My colleague used to say it this way: if you got game, you got game. If you don't, you don't, right? So if you struggle talking to girls, it's probably not the all-male college's fault to begin with. That's my deep dive about sort of why Wabash is an all-male education, the strengths of it, and maybe how to counter some of those common objections that folks may come up with as they think about looking at an all-male college. Like every school, visiting for us is super, super important. Students will not come to Wabash unless they have visited, and probably visited multiple times, right? And so we offer all kinds of fly-in visit opportunities. We love welcoming counselors to campus as well. If you guys would like to come up and see the campus, I would love to do that. And then do have sort of regionally based folks. Like I said, I live in Dallas. I have a colleague who lives out in Phoenix, and another one who is out in up in Chicago. I see a question here in the chat about financial aid, so I'll touch on that just briefly for us, and we may get some time to do it at the end. Wabash offers really generous merit and need-based scholarships. We make our merit scholarship grid publicly available, so students can look at their unweighted GPA, and that will tell them how much merit scholarship money they qualify for. And then on the need-based side, we have sort of had a long-standing commitment as an institution to not letting cost get in the way of students coming to Wabash, so we do our best to meet as much need as is possible. Really happy. That was really quick. Hopefully you guys learned some stuff about us, and look forward to hearing the other presentations and then talking to you some more afterwards. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, Tyler. I'm going to totally borrow that from you. It's not an either or proposition. That's just genius. Terrific. Next up, thank you so much for joining us, Kimberly Zimmerman from Knox College.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Kimberly Zimmerman. I am the Director of Recruitment and Outreach at Knox College. And then Anne, you can jump right to the next slide. Some basic kind of numbers and facts about who Knox is. We have about 1,200 students. We're exclusively undergraduate. Our students come from 45 different states and 50 countries all around the world. So we're in kind of west central Illinois, but our students are really coming to us from all over the country and all over the world. 19% of our total student population are international students, so students that are coming to us from outside of the United States. And 32% of our student population are reported students of color. So really diverse campus community within those 1,200 students. And some ways to think about kind of our exact location. So I'm glad Andrew and Tyler kind of spoke to the beauty and the greatness, the awesomeness of the Midwest, if you will. So I'm going to skip right over that. I just second what they said. Galesburg, Illinois is home to about 33,000 people, and it's about 3 hours straight west of Chicago, like I mentioned, in kind of west central Illinois. It was founded by abolitionists in 1837. So Knox and Galesburg were founded at the same time by the same group of people. And when George Washington Gale founded Knox and Galesburg, he wanted and intended kind of both to support and sustain one another. So we've always been really kind of intertwined, our location with the city of Galesburg. Galesburg is a really pedestrian friendly city. We are about, 2-3 blocks from our historic kind of little downtown area. So a lot of different shops and coffee shops and stores and places for our students to kind of expand out from our campus. We have over 30 restaurants within 3 minutes of campus. So if our students if our students like to eat, there's plenty of places for them to go and explore and eat, and everything from, pizza to kind of burgers and bar food to Indian food and authentic Korean food and sushi. We have a vegan grocery store that's within walking distance of campus. So there's a lot of opportunity for our students to really get out and, like I said, kind of expand into that downtown area. And then we also are right on the Amtrak line. So we have a major Amtrak line that runs right into Galesburg, again, walking distance from campus. I always say if a student has several suitcases with them, they might want to coerce a friend into picking them up at the train station, but you definitely can manage. You can walk right from the train station back to the dorms. And it has 3 times a day service up to Chicago. So a lot of our out-of-state students will fly into Chicago just for convenience of getting into one of those airports, one of the 2 major airports in Chicago, and then hop on the Amtrak train and be right out to Galesburg in about 2.5-3 hours on the train. So it's really easy and accessible to get back and forth. It just kind of takes another step, being a little bit further from a major city, being about 3 hours outside of the city of Chicago. And then some things that I just wanted to highlight, some things that are kind of unique to Knox. So we have what we call a 3-3 calendar system. We have a trimester system. So our students take 3 classes for each of our 10-week terms, 3 terms per year. So our fall term starts a little bit later than kind of the traditional college calendar. We start usually about the 2nd week of September, and we go until right before Thanksgiving. And then our students actually have the opportunity of having a 6-week winter break from Thanksgiving until just after the new year, which is really great for our students to just kind of relax and debrief, maybe to pick up a holiday job, travel back home for our out-of-state students, and not have to immediately turn around and come right back for finals or things like that. So the calendar works really well for our students, especially those that are traveling a little bit further away to get to campus and to get back home. Our winter term starts just after the new year and goes to about mid-March, and then our spring term ends right at the end of really May, beginning of June, and graduation is always the first weekend, the first Sunday in June. And then we do have an optional summer immersion experience, so our students can stay on campus for 6 weeks from June into kind of the beginning of July, and either take a course, do an independent study, do a research opportunity. We have some career immersion opportunities depending on the summer and depending on the offering. So within that calendar system, and especially that optional summer immersion experience, there really is plenty of time to kind of explore interest and get those hands-on real world experiences. Every student at Knox has a primary area of academic focus as well as a second area of academic interest. As well. So they have their major and essentially a minor, a pre-professional program, maybe a concentration, something like that. But there's a lot of opportunity within that calendar for students to have both of those areas of interest and really be experts in 2 areas of interest before they graduate in those 4 years. Something else that is unique to Knox, we have 2 things. So we have our immersion terms, and then we have our Power of Experience grant, and I kind of just merged them both onto the same slide here. So our immersion terms, I mentioned that we have the trimester system, the 10-week trimester system. What our students could do is, instead of enroll in 3 separate classes for their trimester, they could enroll in a singular immersion term. So this is really kind of what it sounds like. You enroll in an immersion term in your entire 10 weeks. All 3 of your class credits are kind of around the singular area, the singular immersion term. Our repertory theater immersion term, our students actually put on 2 theater productions, 2 main stage theater productions within that 10-week term, and they'll either perform in one and then do set design, costume design, directing, some type of tech in the second one. Our Green Oaks term is something that's really cool. Our students actually move out to our biological field station that's about 20-30 minutes outside of campus. They move into a renovated barn, which we've turned into dorms, and they live out there for 10 weeks, and they take 3 classes out at Green Oaks, or maybe 2 classes in an independent study. And the classes range everything from kind of like art and nature to classes on ecology and environmentalism. So all of our immersion terms are open to students regardless of their major. And there's a variety of different kind of multidisciplinary things that a student could do within each immersion term. And we're looking to make sure that we're offering our immersion terms. Coming out of the pandemic, we find our students are really wanting to take advantage of this. So we're looking to expand our immersion term opportunities and offer all of our immersion terms even more frequently. So I think this is something that in the next couple of years, more and more students will have the ability to participate in if they want to, because we don't want to close anyone out of an immersion term opportunity. So we're just expanding those more and more over the next couple of years here. And then our Power of Experience grant is something I just want to make sure I highlight. So every student here at Knox gets $2,000 to spend during their junior or senior year, just to help with kind of these additional expenses that are often associated with these experiential learning opportunities. So maybe they need to buy a piece of computer software for a research project that they're doing. Maybe they need professional clothing for their internship or their student teaching. Maybe they need additional money to fund that study abroad opportunity. Whatever it is, our students can use their Power of Experience grant, their $2,000, to really help with the cost associated with some of those experiential learning opportunities, because we don't want money to be a barrier to any of those really fantastic kind of resume and experiential learning opportunities for our students. And then the other thing I wanted to highlight was our Prairie Fire Flagship Match Program. So this is something that is new this year. And we didn't want any student to essentially choose to attend a large public state school if that wasn't the right fit for them. Just because it was seemingly cheaper, seemingly, more inexpensive than maybe a liberal arts school as an option. So any applicant applying to Knox this year, if they have a 3.5 GPA or higher and are recalculated, we do recalculate all of the GPAs once the applications come through. So a 3.5 GPA and kind of those core academic courses, English, math, science, social science, things like that. If they have a 3.5 GPA or higher, they get a Prairie Fire Flagship Match Scholarship. That essentially allows them to pay the same tuition to attend Knox as their home state's flagship public university. So we have all the kind of scholarship amounts on our website and more information listed there, but I wanted to make sure I highlighted that for you all. And then my last slide, just some kind of outcomes for our students following their 4 years here at Knox. We have 100% medical school acceptance rate for our students who are pre-med and have a 3.5 GPA or higher. So if they come to Knox and they work hard, they keep their GPA up, they're essentially guaranteed medical school acceptance. And that's been 100% for probably, I want to say the last 6, maybe 7 years, at least the last 6 years, 100% medical school acceptance rate. We also have 100% law school acceptance rate for our pre-law students, and this is going on year 8 for 100% law school acceptance. So our students that come here and study pre-law, they're getting into law school at 100%, which is always fantastic to see. And we are among the top 4%. And I don't know if you want to click through, you can click through the rest of the best 3 too. But we're among the top 4% of liberal arts colleges producing successful PhD candidates. And I think that just speaks to kind of the quality and the rigor of the education that our students receive here at Knox. They don't just, they're not just successful at Knox, but they're successful in their graduate and PhD programs coming out. And we're the nation's first Peace Corps preparatory program. So the Peace Corps approached us when they were looking to build their Peace Corps preparatory program, which now several colleges are a part of, which is fantastic. But we had helped build that alongside them when they looked to us to create a program that they could partner with colleges in. And we've been in the Forbes Grateful Grad Index for 6 years in a row, which just kind of again speaks to the experience that our students have here. It's just something we always like to see, that our alumni are continuing on and feeling like we prepared them and for success, and we see that they're continuing on and being successful. And that is it for me. So I will pass it off to Ohio Wesleyan, I believe.
Thank you so much, Kim. And yeah, next up is Ohio Wesleyan University, brought to us by Kristen Crosby. Thank you. And thanks for your patience with the click-throughs.
Great, thanks. I'm Kristen Crosby, and I work both with students in New England as well as all international applicants. I've been at OWU for 4 years, and I'm excited to introduce you to Ohio Wesleyan. We call it OWU. And OWU is located in Delaware, Ohio, which is a small city of about 40,000 people. Our campus, just sort of beyond the trees, maybe 2 blocks, is right next to downtown Delaware. So students can walk to nearly 50 restaurants and cafes, and movie theater, grocery store, pharmacy, museum, entrepreneurship center, all within about 2 minutes to maybe 5 or 10 minutes. So we're walking distance. So we're very close to downtown Delaware, and we're just a 30-minute drive from Columbus, Ohio. So we've got the Columbus International Airport just 35 minutes away, and Columbus is the 14th largest city in the US, the fastest growing city in the Midwest, and it's known for tech and entrepreneurship. And Intel is currently building a new plant, so we expect that there will be about 3,000 new jobs created in the next couple of years through Intel, which is moving into Columbus, but sort of on the northern side near OWU. I guess you can go on to the next slide. So really what I want to highlight is the students' experience, the academic experience. If there's one word that I want you to connect with Ohio Wesleyan, it's the word connection. Our curriculum is called the OWU Connection. It's our signature experience. There are 4 components, little sound bites, if you will. Think big, go global, do good, and get real. Students will learn to think critically and creatively. They'll solve complex problems, they'll communicate ideas, and they'll apply knowledge in real world settings. So the OWU Connection is really meant to connect students' learnings to real world experiences. In terms of think big, you can think of spanning academic disciplines, interdisciplinary programs to explore important issues, conduct mentored research, do good. Our students are very active in the community. They serve the community and make the world a better, more caring place. Our students collectively do about 45,000 hours of community service each year. In terms of going global, we have opportunities not only for studying abroad for a semester or a year, but we also have what are called travel learning courses, which happen on campus. But then because our classes are small, the average class size at OWU is 13 students, the travel learning classes all travel together, professors and students, to a location or several locations that really allow them to do field studies or deeply immerse themselves in a real world setting, studying something they've just studied all semester long on campus. We also have several study away programs in New York City, a fine and performing arts apprenticeship program. We have a program in Philadelphia focusing on business, marketing, communication. There's a Chicago Humanities Research Program, and we have Wesleyan in Washington, a program that allows students to do internships in politics, government, law, and working with NGOs. I guess we can go on to the next slide. So in terms of opportunities, research, travel, service, internships, we call it the OWU Promise. Experience is guaranteed. So we don't just say that students have access to internships, research, travel, or service opportunities, but everyone has to graduate with these experiences. And we have connection grants that allow students to receive up to $10,000 for either the summer or even academic year experiences. Connection grants can cover travel, they can cover housing, they can cover even Uber rides into Columbus if they're doing an internship in Columbus. So we provide the funding to students to connect their learning to real world experiences. Next slide, please. Oh, next slide, please. Okay. I don't know if we lost her. Anyway, I'll just keep talking about the OWU connection. There we go. When our professors set out to create the OWU connection, they really wanted to put together a set of skills and focus on skills that employers are looking for. So the skills that employers value the most, that's on the right side of the slide. This comes from a Forbes poll. And if you could see on the left, the OWU path provides skills that gives students the opportunity to reason quantitatively, question scientifically, think aesthetically, listen, imagine, understand, write. There's a great emphasis on foreign languages. And in fact, foreign languages is our second most popular minor. So if you have students who really enjoy learning a foreign language, they're going to be in good company at OWU. And there are all kinds of other great benefits of the OWU connection. But essentially, we get students doing research right from the beginning of their first year, internships right after their first year. Students will typically have more than one OWU connection experience. They might have all three. Some examples include students doing research at the MIT and Harvard Broad Institute on Neurology and Alzheimer's. A connection grant, a student received a connection grant to do an internship at the Chipangali Wildlife Preserve in Tanzania. And a nice example of our travel learning course is our island biology course that goes to the Galapagos for 2 weeks. But there are really some wonderful opportunities to connect their students to real world experiences. Next slide, please. The other thing I want to mention about Ohio Wesleyan is that 99% of our students receive financial assistance. We are rated a best value school, and this is information on last year's costs. But as you can see, the average aid package is about $45,000. So the average total room and board that a student is paying is just under $17,000. So we're truly trying to make Ohio Wesleyan affordable. We were ranked #1 best value college in Ohio. And I think we're also in the US News and World Report best value ranking as well. In terms of our most popular majors, in case you're wondering, biology is our #1 most popular major, business, economics, politics and government, health and human kinetics, and then some other kind of more niche programs that a lot of liberal arts colleges might not necessarily offer. Zoology is a very popular major at Ohio Wesleyan, as well as astronomy and astrophysics. I think I've wrapped, I think that's my last slide, so I'll turn it back over to our colleagues for questions.
I'm going to hop in. Thank you so much. This was like amazing. And I just want to make sure we've got some time for some people's questions. And I always have questions too. So we heard a little bit, thank you so much for sharing that information about sort of where how you're trying to make colleges more affordable. I think that's, tremendously important. Particularly many of us also work with pro bono students. So can you each kind of talk about sort of the percentage of need-based aid that's met for your institutions? And if you stack, sort of how that works in terms of how you put together your financial aid packages, do you stack merit? And whoever wants to go first would be great.
I hope you don't mind if I jump in first. Ohio Wesleyan does have stackable merit scholarship awards. Not all of the scholarship awards are stackable, but some of our program-based awards are. So we have a fine arts, performing arts scholarship up to $10,000 per year that is stackable on top of the other awards. We also have our MEEK award for community service and leadership. That is another $10,000 award that is stackable on top of the admission award. Our scholarships typically range between $20,000 and $28,000 per year. And then there are some other scholarship competitions up to full tuition. So students have the opportunity to compete for up to full tuition and could even stack one of those other scholarships on top. I don't have the number off the top of my head of the percentage of students whose need we meet. We do our best to meet need, but we don't guarantee to meet need for every single student. And then also I'll mention that our regular deadline is March 1st. So we are still accepting applications and our scholarship competitions are still open.
So I'll follow on that. So Kalamazoo, 98% of our students receive some sort of financial aid. Our merit scholarships range between $30,000 and $42,000 per year. We meet on average about 90% of need, which does mean that there are some students who will find that they are gapped and some are not. It does depend on how much merit aid they get because it is stacked with need-based aid. If we do need to, if we're going to exceed demonstrated need, the first thing that we'll remove will be things like work study or the subsidized loans. We will do our best not to remove other gift-based aid. And generally the college is pretty good about that because it's something we're very aware of. So the average need-based financial aid package is about $45,752 a year. I happen to know that one off the top of my head. I work with students from Korea and California to Northern Michigan and the East Coast. And I will see financial aid packages where the student's gap is about $150 per term, up to about $3,000 per term. And so it really does just kind of depend on the students, both their affinity with the college overall and also their family's financial situation.
I have a hunch the answers are all going to be really similar here. So we make our merit grid publicly available. Merit scholarships start at 17 and go up to $30,000 for us based on students' unweighted GPA. We do have some full ride scholarships that are available as well for our Lilly Scholarship Program. Students can stack those scholarships up to the cost of attendance, but typically students only will receive like one merit award from us as part of theirs. We don't have multiple different merit scholarship programs. So you get admitted, you receive a $27,000 D scholarship or whatever. As far as percentages of need met, the number I don't know off the top of my head. It's a very high number, right? And again, we do our best to meet as much need for families as is possible.
I will round out the answers. So I have some numbers kind of on my other screen here, so I'll be reading off a little bit. So for total family incomes that are under 35,000, our average award is about 61,000 a year, which is a little bit more, or is just a little bit under kind of what the total cost of the college would be. We do meet need for our early decision students. So for the students who are applying to us ED, we will meet 100% of need. That does include work study and loan. So we do use self-help to meet need for our students, but for our early decision students, we do meet full need. And I don't think this is relevant to the people in this group, but we also meet need for students coming from Illinois. So for our Illinois students, we are meeting 100% of financial need. And then our hope is the first year of Prairie Fire Flagship Match. So our hope is that the merit scholarship can really supplement some need for our out-of-state, kind of high achieving, academically strong students. So we'll see what that turns into percentage wise. We do stack merit and need-based aid on top of one another. So one doesn't necessarily hurt the other depending on where our family falls in terms of their expected family contribution, their family financial need. Over 95% of our students receive either need-based and or scholarship, and 84% of our total student population receives some kind of need-based aid. So we do have a large population of students. We're about 30% Pell eligible at Knox. So we have a large population of students, that have large financial need that come to Knox each year. So it's something that we definitely work through and make sure that we're not putting up financial barriers for our students so they can get their full educational experience they deserve, not only at the college they choose to come to, but once they're here as well. So that's always part of our conversations, being about 30% first gen and 30% Pell eligible. It's definitely a topic of conversation in many meetings around campus.
Thank you so much. That's incredibly helpful. The prairie fire thing was like, I was like, this is amazing. I just, all of the bells were going off, and it's just, it's such a great idea. I just love it, because that's what a lot of the state institutions around here will do to take students from sort of North Carolina. And I know I want to be super respectful of people's time, but a couple of things. One, just from the questions. So we are deeply in SEC and ACC territory for SACAC. And so what are some of the things that what are some of the kinds of students that would succeed well at your institutions? We also, many of us work with students who are students of color, LGBTQ students. And as many of us are in red states, some of you are also in very red states, what are, in terms of campus climate and the kinds of students that would feel welcome and included at your institutions? If you could speak to that, and then we will let everyone go, because thank you so much.
So I think that fit piece that Anne talked about, that we all talked about, is so important with regard to this, right? And when I give presentations to high schools, I often start out with sort of a frame of reference building exercise, where I will sort of ask them to identify, here are things that people list as things that are important to them in their college search, right? If going to a state school that has 100,000 people at a football game where people are partying on a Wednesday night, right? There are plenty of other colleges in the country where students can get that experience. If they want that experience, Wabash is not going to be the place for them, right? And I think it's harder to get into that method, because we always want to be in the business of being like, it's great for everybody. Everybody should come here, right? This is a great fit for everybody. But if those things are the things that are most important to students, like just telling up front, like, this is probably not the place for you, right? But if you want a place that is going to challenge you, and this is the same for all of the CTL schools, challenge you to grow as a person, both in the classroom and outside the classroom, developing really strong character, having those really awesome, small classes with great interactions with faculty and staff. All of our campuses are really, really good places to be able to do that, right? As far as the ones, I can speak for Wabash that do well for us, grade wise, right? Like average GPA this last year was a 3.72 weighted GPA. We are test optional, but test averages last year was like a 1270 on the SAT. So that's like a 27, 28, right? ACT. We tend to do well with students who are leaders in the student body. So folks that are involved in student government, people that are Eagle Scouts, folks that are captains of their athletic teams are involved in the student government of some way. People that generally, we talk about it a lot as terms of those big picture sort of students. So students that are thinking really seriously about what is the career that I want to be in, what is my life that I envision myself in, kind of thinking about those bigger picture kind of questions. And then I think a thing that I've said a lot with folks, I think students that may be sort of high functioning, folks that are on an autism spectrum, I think tend to do well at a place like Wabash. And I don't know if there's anything special that we do other than we treat everybody as individuals, right? And I think it's good for students to have opportunities where they feel very safe and cared for. With regard to the political climates, and I kind of alluded to this in our presentation, we feel really strongly about the quality of the community that Wabash has built, and that there are people from all different political backgrounds, right, and racial and ethnic backgrounds and socioeconomic statuses, et cetera, on our campus, and everybody gets along really well, right? I think, students of color, it feels, Crawfordsville, Indiana will feel very different to a student that grew up in the Rio Grande Valley of South Texas, right? Where, everyone speaks Spanish, billboards are in Spanish, you order food from restaurants in Spanish, right? No small town in the Midwest is going to feel similar to that, right? But there is a vibrant, Hispanic population in our community, and we see very little, if any, really issues with there being sort of a scary campus climate for folks at Wabash.
Yeah, I can jump in and say I think that Kalamazoo is probably very similar, and I think that we all really pride ourselves. Part of the CTCL ethos is providing opportunities for students to connect with people both similar and different from themselves, right? What Tyler was just talking about. I think that one of the questions about safety is an important one. I think that obviously there's kind of two different lenses on that we take into account. There's the actual physical safety of the campus, which, being small, there's a community aspect to the way that we do, community safety protocols and trainings and things like that, both for staff, for our on-campus campus safety group, and also for students. But then there's also the sense of security that students feel, right? And that's where really I think that those smaller communities that we provide really go the distance, because I think that students are able to find their people and find these communities and find places of support. We've all talked about how we have diversity on our campuses, and 30% first generation, nearly 40% students of color, or over at some schools. And so we also all have, even though we're small schools, resource centers for their students, opportunities for those students to engage in positive ways with identity formation and engage with communities outside of the campus that will align with those kinds of affinities that they might have. It's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about the work that small liberal arts colleges do, is that I think that we have an opportunity to do that in a way that's so different from, if they find themselves in a really large university setting where, sure, there may be a lot more people, using the example of the Rio Grande Valley, who, maybe literally speak the same language and have the same experiences and all that stuff. However, in a small environment like ours, we are able to create social environments where those students are going to be able to become friends with somebody from literally different countries, different perspectives, find the things that they do have in common with each other, even if they can't necessarily find somebody who grew up in their same neighborhood. Oh, and the red state, blue state thing, I think absolutely something that we get a lot of questions about. Kalamazoo specifically, though, Michigan currently actually just flipped to being an entirely blue state as far as our, representation goes. That doesn't change the fact, though, that, you travel 20 minutes outside of Kalamazoo and you're going to find, still some faded Trump signs all over the place. And certainly your students do ask us about those things. One of the reasons why I will keep repeating for all the questions you're asking, we encourage students to come and visit us and see what it actually feels like. Because Kalamazoo itself is actually a very liberal little bubble, partially because we're a college town, but also because we have things like, Pfizer and Stryker Pharmaceuticals here in town. So we've got people from all over the world who come here to work, because, we have a really vibrant arts and theater and music community here. All of those things actually play a pretty substantial role in what the place feels like, and also who feels included and not.
I'm deeply grateful. I want to make sure we're respectful of everyone's time. I love these institutions. We are incredibly grateful for you all spending your time with us today. And I hope that this will help our counselors, our special interest group folks, help students have some more interesting, impactful options and ways to think beyond sort of the 5 schools that everybody in their high school applies to, which happens a lot, at least for my students in North Carolina. We are just incredibly grateful for your for being here. Anne, can you remind me again when you guys will be in Charlotte again, and maybe just a quick blip about what your tour looks like this spring?
Yeah, and I was just madly typing that in the chat. So I was like, I hope Deb gives me a minute to talk about. So we are, allow me to cheat a little bit, and I'll try and put the link in there too. We are in Charlotte on March 14th. And so let me type and talk and vamp as I do that. So Charlotte is March 14th. That's an evening fair, and we will be at the Hilton Charlotte University Place. You can find all of them on our website. Actually, if you go to ctcl.org, that would probably be faster for everybody. There's a link to the information sessions and college fairs. One thing that's really unique about our events is we open with, they're 2 hours long. We open with a 30-minute-ish information. Oh, I was gonna say we open with an opening session. Anyway, the opening session covers a little bit about CTCL. It's a broad overview of the institutions and our philosophy, and kind of try to flip the narrative on the way folks do a college search and build a list. So it's a very student-centered kind of discussion. Last year, it really focused on SEL. This year, there's some other things that's exciting. So please be there. And then that's followed up by an 1.5-hour long college fair. And we're also happy to bring back a very popular 30-minute session on financial aid and paying for college. So on March 15th, we're in Atlanta, and it's kind of like a rock and roll tour. And so that's going to be in the Buckhead area. That's at the Atlanta Marriott Buckhead Hotel and Conference Center. I can't type and talk at the same time. I left the word off, hotel. And then Nashville, we'll be in Nashville on Thursday, August 17th, and location to be determined. But like I said, you can check that out on our website. We'll keep those updated as soon as I secure all those venues. And I think those are the 3 areas where we'll be that covers your SIG in SACAC.
And I'll just mention that several of us from the Triangle went to the meeting in Charlotte last year, and it was phenomenal. It was amazing. That was where I cornered you and said, hey, will you present to all these different groups that I belong to? And so it's absolutely, if you have students who are in either of those sort of metro areas who are interested in sort of doing that. The one other question I have, do the CTCL schools typically take part in the NACAC virtual college fairs? Do you participate in those very often?
It really kind of, not as an organization, it depends on the individual member schools. Yeah.
Great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for being with us today. We are deeply grateful for your time. Just a note for all of our special interest group members, our next meeting will be at the SACAC conference. So hopefully we'll see you all there. And then after that will be May 16th. So thank you all so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. And we are very grateful for all of your time.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.